Kathy landed in Spain the way people arrive at a coastline after weeks inland, hungry for air that tastes a little like salt and a little like possibility. She hadn't planned this trip so much as stepped into it, a flight scooped up in a late-night search. 3 nights booked near a narrow Barcelona street where balconies held pots of geraniums that leaned over like gossipy neighbors. The city was sticky with August, the kind of heat that made her skin feel awake, even when she was just walking for groceries. She liked that. Awake felt like a promise. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching. She had been to places like this before, like this, meaning the discreet, adult-only, sex-positive scenes that friends called bars liberales, with a smirk and a raised eyebrow. Some were clumsy, some pretended to be elegant, most were a mix of both. Kathy had always been more watcher than participant. She was the one who slipped into the corners and let the noise blur, kissing when she wanted to, touching when it felt right, but never stepping past the edge where a night stops being a story you tell and becomes a secret you keep. She wasn't shy. She was selective. It was different. On her second evening, after tapas that were all crunch and brine and a glass of vermouth that made her mouth glow, she found the place everyone had hinted at without naming. A legendary bar liberal whose reputation moved like a whisper through certain circles. The door was unmarked, only a brass bell and a host in black who said buenas noches as if he had been saying it since the city was invented. Inside, the entryway was calm and bright, not at all like the fantasy her mind had queued up. She liked that too. The rules were on the wall in polite Spanish and precise English. Consent first, no photos, no pressure, respect the wristband colors. She read every line, feeling something low and electric settle in her chest. Safety lets desire breathe. That's what she'd learned over the years. And this place wore safety like good cologne, subtle, intentional, expensive. A woman at reception offered her wristbands like candies, green for sí, yellow for pregunta primero, red for solo mirar. Kathy took yellow. Ask first. It matched the discipline she'd made out of her desire. A locker swallowed her phone. The click of the key was satisfying. The club unfolded in soft layers, a long bar lit like dusk, a dance floor pulsing under a net of light that shifted from citrus to berry, alcoves curtained in velvet the color of cherry skins, and a quieter lounge where the music thinned into heartbeat tempo. People looked happy. That surprised her every time. The simple, unpretending happiness of people allowed to be as they are. It was not a carnival of shock. It was a party where the main theme was attention, and attention, when its kind, can be holy. She took a drink she could sip for an hour, leaned on polished wood, and watched the night loosen itself. A couple laughed at something private. A trio spun past the bar as if the floor were a tide, and they were willing to be carried. 2 women near the dance floor stood close enough that their shoulders learned each other's shape. Kathy had that familiar hovering feeling, present, yet deliberately uncommitted, like an actor waiting in the wings for a cue she might ignore if it didn't land just right. "Te gusta la música?" asked a voice near her shoulder. "Do you like the music?" Kathy turned and saw her. Local, yes. Trouble, probably. Impossible to ignore. Absolutely. She wasn't tall, but everything about her posture said tall. She wore a black crop top with a daring lower cleavage, the kind that revealed just enough of the undercurve to draw the eye, making her sun-kissed skin look like it knew secrets about the Mediterranean and how to wear them well. Denim shorts clung to her hips as if poured on, cut just high enough to hint at recklessness, perfectly suited for the Barcelona heat. Hair pulled back, not tightly, just enough to show the clean line of her neck, and a smile with the easy voltage of a city that gets more beautiful after midnight. Her wristband was yellow too. I do, Kathy said. And then, because honesty sometimes opens better doors than charm, but I like the way you asked even more. The woman's mouth lifted at one corner. Soy Lucia, she said. Lucia con acento. She traced a tiny accent in the air, playful. You're not from here. No, Kathy said. I'm from a place where the heat is nervous and the night is crowded with cars, not people. She paused. I'm Kathy. Kathy, Lucia repeated, tasting it. Okay. A word that could be a shrug or a kiss, depending on the tone. In Lucia's mouth, it was both. They talked. Not the small talk that makes time feel shapeless, but the quick stepping kind that sets a rhythm and asks if you can keep up. Lucia was from nearby, born in St. Andrew, adopted by the whole city. And her laugh was efficient. It arrived, did its work, and left a warmth behind. She'd been to this club often enough to describe the bartender's playlist with accuracy and affection. He plays the songs that make the heart pretend it never learned fear, she said, and then grinned at her own dramatics. I am ridiculous sometimes. You're perfect, Kathy said, before she had time to shy away from it. She wasn't the type to offer the word easily. It just showed up, uninvited and right. Lucia looked at Kathy's yellow band and touched her own. A quick tap, like a secret handshake. Bailas? Do you dance? Kathy held up her glass. If you promise not to laugh at my rhythm. Never, Lucia said, already leading the way toward the light. The dance floor received them like a warm hand. It wasn't a crush of bodies. It was a braid of them, space to move, space to breathe, a softness around the edges. Lucia didn't come at her. She came near her, which is different. She let the distance do its work, filled the air between them with suggestion and timing. Kathy followed, then challenged, then found herself smiling without thinking. They learned each other's speed quickly. Lucia knew how to listen with her hands without touching. Kathy knew how to answer without giving everything away. May I? Lucia asked, letting her palm hover at Kathy's waist. You may, Kathy said, lifting the yellow band with her other hand as if to bless the request. Ask first, she added, and then, in a voice she barely recognized as her own. And keep asking. The touch was light, directional, confident without being demanding. Lucia drew her closer by degrees, as if calibrated to breathing. They moved. The bass threaded their steps into a shared shape. The room leaned warmer. Conversations around them turned into punctuation marks instead of sentences. Lucia's smile, God, that smile, flashed and faded like the best kind of warning light. New here? Lucia asked over the music. New to the city, Kathy said. Not new to the idea. She flicked her eyes toward the velvet alcoves, the green band couples slipping into shadow, the loungers who were there mostly to watch and learn. And you? Kathy asked. I'm a regular, Lucia said, not bragging, just true. This place is like summer. It doesn't make you who you are. It lets you be it. They danced until sweat made their temples shine. When the song slid into something slower, Lucia stepped back a centimeter as if to prove she could. Then she slipped her hand into Kathy's and tugged gently. Air? She offered, chin tipping toward the lounge. The quieter room felt like an exhale. Sofas, a low table with water and orange slices, candlelight pretending to be practical. Lucia poured them both water and sat, spine easy, legs crossed in a way that made stillness look like choreography. She watched Kathy the way some people read novels, page by page, not skipping ahead. What do you want tonight? She asked. The question took up space. It took up space in Kathy's chest, her throat, the spot just under her ribs where want lives even when you won't feed it. She had been to bars like this before. She had kissed, touched, sampled the skin of things, then stepped back intact. She had never been the person who chose a curtain and let it fall behind her. It wasn't that she couldn't. She hadn't wanted to, hadn't met anyone who made the yes feel like a door she opened for herself. I've always been good at stepping back before the edge, at leaving before the night could carry me further. Kathy said, honest to the point of bare. Lucia's smile dimmed into something softer. Almost is a country, she said. Lots of people live there. And you? Kathy asked. I commute, Lucia said, with a small wickedness that warmed the air between them. But only when I want to. Kathy let her laugh spill out. Then she sobered. I don't know what I want yet. I know I want to find out without breaking myself. Entonces, Lucia said gently, we will not break anything. A small swallow moved down Kathy's throat. And you? What do you want? Lucia didn't answer right away. She looked at the yellow band on her wrist, the match to Kathy's. Permission, she said finally, to make you feel something you will remember when Barcelona is a taste in a photograph, and to be remembered kindly. Kathy felt the room tilt by a fraction. She could hear the music again, even here. It was slower now, all pulse and hushed vowels. She lifted her hand, rested it, palm up, on the cushion between them. Ask me, she said. May I sit close? Yes. May I touch your hand? Yes. May I look at you like you're mine for one song? Kathy's smile was a careful thing that broke and became a brighter thing. Yes. Lucia shifted closer. Their knees touched, then adjusted, then aligned. Her fingers threaded with Kathy's, a simple interlacing that felt like finding an old photograph in a new apartment. She didn't rush the rest. She let silence do some of the talking. It said, we are here, we are awake. No one owes anyone a story that tomorrow can't carry. When Lucia finally asked, may I kiss you? The night folded around the question like a cupped hand around a flame. Yes, Kathy said, feeling the word land low in her belly. Yes. The kiss was competent in the way kindness is competent, skill without show, attention without hunger. It tasted like orange and a little salt and something green, rosemary maybe, from the drink they'd shared. Lucia's mouth moved as if she were listening to an instrument only she could hear, then sinking to it, then letting Kathy lead a bar or two. When they parted, it felt less like a stop and more like a breath you take before you say something important. Well, Lucia murmured, forehead tipping to rest against Kathy's for a beat. I like how you say yes. Kathy laughed softly, which made Lucia kiss her again for no reason other than that sound. They didn't race. They edited the moment before they added to it. Lucia asked to trace a line along Kathy's collarbone with her fingers. Kathy agreed. Lucia asked to pull Kathy's chair closer so their thighs could be friends. Kathy agreed. Lucia asked to tangle a hand in Kathy's hair for a second, to test the little prayerful tug that lives at the base of the skull. Kathy agreed and breathed out a surprised, pleased note she didn't mean to sing. Bold lived here too, quiet and sure. You're different, Lucia said, not as a compliment so much as a diagnosis. You look at the room like you're measuring it for a memory. And you? Kathy asked. I look at you like I don't want to miss. Somewhere nearby, someone laughed and then hushed themselves. A curtain sighed. Ice clinked. The club felt like it had decided to be benevolent. The night had no sharp corners. Lucia brushed her nose against Kathy's cheek, a small animal gesture that should have been cute and was somehow devastating. I've never crossed that line, Kathy said at last, because the truth once invited, sometimes insists on staying. Not here. Not in places like this. I've never met someone who made it feel like a choice I was making with myself, and not to myself. Lucia nodded, as if she'd expected that answer, and liked it anyway. Entonces, she said again, if we go further, it's because you want to, not because the room dares you to. Okay? And if we stay right here and kiss like this until your lips memorize my name, also okay. Kathy looked at the yellow band. It glowed softly in the low light. She slid it gently up her wrist, just enough to feel the skin underneath wake up. What if, she said carefully, we change the color and spirit? We keep asking, but we let the questions get braver. Lucia's smile was sunlight finding a tile floor. Eso me gusta. I like that. They didn't choose the wildest alcove. They didn't choose a stage or a mirror or anywhere that would make the moment more spectacle than experience. Lucia guided Kathy to a corner booth at the edge of the lounge, half curtained, half open, where the world could be present and private at the same time. She fetched water and mint, and a little saucer of salted almonds, like a ritual of care. She asked for hand sanitizer with a wink, the kind of detail that ruins nothing and rescues everything. Kathy laughed and loved her a little for it. Before we go further, Lucia said, voice low, tell me your no's. Kathy inhaled, said them, the practical ones, the tender ones, the ones you only learn to say after years of not saying them. Lucia listened like a woman who had learned that listening is an art form. Then she told her own, what she wouldn't do, what she wouldn't take, what she wouldn't risk. Not rules as fences, rules as choreography. And your yeses? Kathy felt heat climb her throat in a way that had nothing to do with embarrassment and everything to do with ownership. Yes to your mouth, yes to your hands, yes to being seen by you, not by the room. Not tonight. A small swallow. Yes to more than I've ever said yes to before. If it still feels like me. Lucia took that in. Te prometo, she said. I promise. The curtain fell another inch because gravity said so, not because they pulled it. Lucia pressed a last question to the inside of Kathy's wrist with her breath. Lista? Ready? Kathy thought of the city outside, the shuttered bakeries breathing out heat, the scooters leaning like punctuation at the curb, the balconies with their opinionated plants, and then of this small geography of sofa, curtain, candle. She thought of past nights where she had hovered at the edge and convinced herself it was enough, and of this one where a Spanish girl with a killing body and a smile like permission had drawn her a different map. All right, she said, and it felt like putting her name on something that belonged to her. When Lucia kissed her again, it wasn't the breaking of a rule. It was the rule they'd written together. Hands learned backs, backs learned arches, breaths learned where to meet in the middle. The music darkened to a slow citrus thrum. The almonds on the saucer went untouched. Kathy's world narrowed, then deepened, then opened like a window you didn't know could move. The night didn't need to be fast to be bold. It only needed to be true. And as Lucia's mouth found the place just below Kathy's ear, that turned her yes into a yes, and Kathy realized she wasn't visiting almost anymore. She was on a new street entirely, one with her name on the buzzer and her voice on the other side. Outside the curtain, Barcelona kept being Barcelona. Inside it, Kathy let the word further change shape, syllable by careful syllable, into something she'd been building toward without admitting it. She wasn't falling, she was choosing. The difference felt like light. The song ended. Another began. The night leaned in and waited. The curtain hung just low enough to pretend privacy, but not enough to fool them into forgetting the world. Lucia kissed like someone who understood the choreography of patience. Her mouth moved in slow arcs, never taking more than Kathy gave, never settling until Kathy tilted forward with her own hunger. That was the difference. It wasn't being pulled into someone else's story. It was writing a page herself. Their hands wandered carefully, deliberately. Kathy felt the arc of Lucia's back, the sharp line of her waist, the warmth that hummed under her shirt. She had kissed women before, touched, lingered in that soft borderland of almost. But this time there was no border. Not with Lucia's questions folded into each brush of skin, each shift of weight. Can I? May I? Will you let me? The yeses came easier now, like dominoes tipped in sequence, one permission tumbling into another. When Lucia traced a line at the small of her back and pulled her closer, Kathy felt her own restraint sigh and collapse. It wasn't reckless. It was precise. Every motion belonged to her as much as it belonged to Lucia. The night didn't feel stolen. It felt offered. That distinction made all the difference. For the first time in places like this, Kathy did not excuse herself to the edges. She didn't find comfort in the almost. She stayed. She let the kiss deepen. She let touch become discovery. She let herself taste a version of intimacy she had always considered but never claimed. Not graphic, not spectacle, but close, warm, unashamed. Later, when her forehead pressed to Lucia's shoulder and their breaths wove together in a rhythm older than music, Kathy understood that some choices write themselves into you. She could already tell this would be one of them. The hours shifted without mercy. At some point, the club began to empty in waves, couples drifting to the streets, friends laughing their way to taxis, the pulse of the music fading toward something tender, almost sleepy. Lucia fetched her water again, pressed the glass to Kathy's hand as if it were ceremony. "Drink," she said softly. "Barcelona is cruel to the thirsty." Kathy laughed, drained half the glass, and only then realized how dry her throat had been. The exhaustion in her limbs wasn't the kind that begged for bed. It was the kind that comes from finally unclenching a muscle you didn't realize you'd been holding all your life. "Walk?" Lucia asked. The street outside had shifted into a quieter self. The balconies were dark, the scooters parked obediently in rows, the stones of the Gothic quarter holding on to the day's heat like a secret. They walked without hurrying, shoulders brushing, silence flowing easily between them. Lucia's hand slipped into Kathy's, casual but certain, as if they'd been walking like this forever. "You've been to places like that before," Lucia said after a while, not as a question but as a knowing. "Yes." "But tonight was different." Kathy breathed in, slow. "Because you were." Lucia's laugh was quiet. "Don't put all the weight on me. You said yes. That was you." Kathy squeezed her hand, admitting the truth in that. "It was me. But I needed someone who made the yes feel like mine." They stopped at a corner, where a bakery's shutters were painted with a mural of bread and laughter. Lucia leaned back against the wall, pulling Kathy with her, a final kiss unfolding under the indifferent glow of a street light. It was unhurried, lingering, not fire this time, but ember, the kind that stays warm long after the flame dies. Kathy could already taste the bittersweet edge to it. Tomorrow she would wake up alone in her rented flat, with its creaky fan and narrow bed. Tomorrow she would think about flights and schedules, and the version of her life that was still waiting in another country. Tomorrow she would measure this night against all the others she had lived, and realize it didn't quite fit anywhere. But tonight was still tonight. And tonight she had kissed a woman who turned almost into more. Tonight she had dared herself further, and survived it, softer, not broken. Tonight she had felt awake. They didn't trade numbers. Lucia didn't ask for her Instagram. Kathy didn't offer her email. They both knew better than to stretch this into something it wasn't. This was a Barcelona night, fragile and whole, meant to exist only where it happened. Still, when Kathy finally whispered, "I'll remember you," Lucia smiled in a way that made the promise feel mutual. "You better," she said, brushing a final kiss against her temple. "Because I'll remember you too, extranjera." Stranger, guest, flame for one night. Kathy walked back to her flat with shoes dangling from her fingers, the stones cool under her feet. The city smelled of yeast and seawater, of cigarettes and jasmine climbing the railings. She thought about all the times she had stood at the edge of almost and told herself it was enough. Tonight had taught her otherwise. She didn't need forever to change her, just one night lived honestly. At the door, she turned once more, half expecting to see Lucia in the street, still smiling that impossible smile. But there was no one, just Barcelona, breathing around her, holding the memory steady. She went inside, laid down, and closed her eyes. The world would be ordinary again in the morning, but for tonight, she carried something extraordinary with her. The heat of Lucia's mouth, the weight of her touch, the lesson of her questions, and the yes she had finally learned to give herself. And like all bittersweet things, it ached. But it ached in a way that made her glad to have lived it. Because some nights you forget, and some nights you never can.